Hello and welcome to another one of our departmental profiles of Ascension Parish Government Departments. I'm Martin McConnell, Public Information Officer for Ascension Parish Government, and with me today is our DPW, Department of Public Works Director, Mr. Bill Rue. Hi, Bill.
Hello.
Man, we're glad to have you here. DPW covers such a wide variety of entities, projects that are going on. You have drainage, you have roads, you have, what's under DPW?
Well, under the new reorganization, we kind of combined the forces. Originally, or I guess a few years ago, we actually had two separate departments over there. One was primary drainage, major drainage, which came under the funds of the Consolidated Gravity Drainage District, East Ascension Drainage District. And the President Matassa decided about a year ago that we should not have a separation. We should form DPW or reorganize DPW in one organization. So, and that's something we've been trying to do for the last 6 to 8 months, and finally got it pretty well.
I think it looks like you have it well in hand. And I want to remind everybody, Bill, you've been with the parish as DPW Director and/or Drainage Director for 17 years now.
Yeah, a little over 17, about 17 and a half
so
years.
you pretty much know every mile of ditch and highway and road in Ascension Parish.
I've been just about everywhere in the parish, and unfortunately, a lot of that time was spent during emergency situations, floods, and hurricanes and things like this. But yes, we've been around. I've been with DPW almost 18 years, 17 and a half years, and seen just about everything.
Well, we could really make a mini-series out of what you do and everything that you're over. But I think today we want to talk about drainage, because that's still something that is foremost on people's minds in the parish, because we had the major flood in August of 2016. We had some bit of flooding in March before that of 2016. 2016 was a bad year for water flow, and you're the drainage expert. So you've mentioned a little bit of it, but tell, what is major drainage, and how is that funded? How does that work?
Well, let me just define drainage to begin with, and because we have two types of drainage that people see. One is the drainage along highways and
the roadside ditches.
Okay. And the other part of the drainage is the drainage that is behind people's houses, the major drainage channels, and what we call this is off-road drainage. And the traditional way of handling this is the major East Ascension Drainage District was pretty much responsible to handle everything off the road, off-road drainage. And the road fund, the Ascension Parish Road Fund, would pay for drainage along the road. And when you really get down to it, drainage, period, is the major function of DPW, being either on-road or off-road. Pure drainage, water drainage, is the primary function of DPW. So what we did through the reorganization is to combine the two. So all our employees are able now to work on-road ditches or off-road ditches. And this is a change from the past where only road personnel handled road ditches and off-road personnel handled off-road ditches.
So you're able to divert personnel to where they are needed most at that any given moment.
Absolutely.
So if there's a major flooding event, you can take road people or other DPW employees and dedicate them to assisting in getting the water out of the parish.
That's correct. Now go back to your original question on major drainage. We need to discuss a little bit about the history of everything, because we're kind of unique in Ascension Parish.
And that's probably a good idea, because this is stuff that was all set up years and years ago, and we've got a lot of people in this parish right now who were not here, or were not citizens, or were not even born when drainage was first put into place here. Yeah, give it a little history.
Most of the people don't understand, and what happened back, I think, in about the 1940s, early 50s, I think it was the late 1940s, East Ascension Gravity Drainage District, Consolidated Gravity Drainage District was formed through an act of the legislature. And what happened, they took all the area within Ascension Parish on the east side of the Mississippi River, which is the biggest portion of Ascension Parish, and they put that into East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District. And they did the same thing on the west side, formed West Ascension Gravity Drainage District. And they actually they enacted a special legislation saying that back then the police jurymen, now the council members, that had any portion of their district within the drainage district,
The eastern portion of the parish.
then they were appointed as commissioners of the drainage district. So right now we have 10 members of the council that are officially commissioners of the East Ascension Gravity Drainage District.
So by being elected to the council, if you represent any portion of the east side of the parish,
Right.
that automatically makes you a commissioner for the
Absolutely.
East Ascension Consolidated
right.
Gravity Drainage Board.
Now, to think of it this way, I mean, the East Ascension Gravity Drainage District is the same as the city of Gonzales or the parish or any other entity. They are a subdivision of the state of Louisiana. So they can function totally independent of parish government if they wanted to. And for a short time, for about 2.5 years, several years ago, they did. The council decided to break away, or the drainage board decided to break away from parish council for various reasons, and they went independent. And we functioned. And I went with the drainage district and became general manager of the drainage district. And that we acted as a separate entity up until Tommy Martinez came into parish as the parish president, and then we came back under the direction of the parish president at that time. The main function of the East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District is to handle the major drainage projects within the parish, or the major drainage systems within the parish. And again, going back to what we talked about before, and that's why the East Ascension Gravity Drainage District took over everything away from the road. They consider roadside drainage not part of major drainage.
And that also includes natural waterways, bayous and rivers and so forth.
Absolutely. And originally they had a 5 mil property tax to support.
I was
each
going to ask you
Ascension
to explain
Right.
where the money
Right.
comes from.
Originally, it was, when they set it up, they enacted a 5 mil property tax, ad valorem tax on for East Ascension Gravity Drainage District, so that would be the operation expenses. They're dedicated for that purpose. It's on a 10-year renewal basis, and that is still continuing today. Every 10 years it goes up for renewal.
Now, how much money do you make off of that?
About $4 million.
$4 million a year you
Give or
get
take.
from the property tax.
About 4 to 5 million. Of course, it's increasing. The more property, and in fact, the last 10 years it really increased a lot. In fact, it might be up to 6 million now, and because of the increase in population and things like this.
And it's parish-wide, so people who live within the city limits of Gonzales
That's right.
or Sorrento also pay into that parish-wide tax.
Absolutely. The drainage district is everything within the parish on the east side of the river, including municipalities. And of course, it's common sense because your drainage goes through the municipalities.
The bayou doesn't stop at the city limits.
Exactly. Then back in about, I think, 1984 or 85, they went to the public and they said, look, we need more money based on the fact, most than anything else, the flood of 1977 and the flood of 1983, especially 1983. And a group of people called the Sandbaggers
I remember
formed.
the Sandbaggers.
And because of the extensive amount of flooding from the Amite River, they decided to do something about it. And one of the plans, what they call it the Follett Plan, that came out of that group.
Mr. Prescott Follett was an engineer
out of New Orleans
that they hired to
right.
do a big drainage study.
They decided they needed to do some improvements to protect from the flooding, Amite River flooding, more than anything else. So the plan called for building a levee and putting a pump station on the southern part of the parish. And the cost of that originally was in the $6 to $8 million range, and it rose up a little bit higher to about 12 or 13 million eventually. But to pay for that, they went to the public, to the taxpayers, and basically say, if you want all these projects, we're going to have a sales tax. So they went in for a sales tax for that to not only pay for these improvements, but also pay for the operations of the drainage district and the operation of these pump stations and levees forever, a perpetual tax. So they went in for the sales tax, and right now that, of course, it increases, half-cent sales tax, and of course it's paid again, like you said, in the municipalities as well as at the rural areas of the parish. And right now, because of, again, an increase in population, we're bringing in between 16 and 18 million off of that tax.
From the sales tax? From
sales tax. So, well, I'll take it back, correction. Right now, we're bringing in about 13 million. So if you add that with the ad valorem tax, we have a total budget per year in an $18 million range. And that is purely dedicated to East Ascension Gravity Drainage District work and projects. So it's a really hard, I guess not a problem, but it takes a lot of effort to, mostly with our finance department, to make sure that this money is not commingled doing
because
parish
it's all
work,
dedicated
because
funding.
It's dedicated for drainage.
And it has to be used for drainage
funds.
only.
Exactly right. And they do a great job of making sure that that's happened. They audit it every year, and we have never had a problem, proving to the auditors that that money is for that and it's spent for that. And we have a strict budget process to make sure that happens.
Okay, so we spent $6 million or so on the Marvin Bro pumping station, but you recently, in the last few years, did some additions and improvements to, and how many pumps out there now?
Well, and to go back with what we just mentioned about the Folette plant, it called for a pumping station at the southern part of the parish. So what they came up with, they actually built a levee and enlarged the channels, mostly the Black Bayou system. It used to go into Old Denham Canal. They renamed that Severio Canal and made it larger. And the Bayou, New River and Bayou Francois came together in the southern, below Sorrento.
Right down here.
And all of that was reconfigured to come to one point before you get to an interstate off the Airline Highway south of Sorrento. And at that point there, they built the Marvin Bro pump station. Back when they first built it, it was known as the McElroy pumping station. And Mr. Marvin Bro was the
Marvin Bro was one of the original sandbaggers.
Right.
He was a police juror and a parish councilman.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he actually was the first chairman of the drainage board after they passed the tax during that term, that time. And so after Mr. Bro passed away, they named it after him, Marvin Bro Pump Station. Right now, originally they had 5 pumps. And actually, a little note, the original plan only called for 4 at 2 different locations, 2 pumping stations over there. And that was later changed before construction and consolidated that into a 5 pump station at a single location, and actually could be built for the same amount of money as the 2 different pump stations and give you more capacity.
More efficient too.
So absolutely. So that stayed. We operated the 5 pumps from about 1993. I think it went online, and we continued using that pumping station with the 5 pumps until about 5 or 6 years ago. At that point in time, we found, because of the population increase and development increase in the Central Parish, we discovered that the water was actually getting down there too fast. Too much water was getting down there too fast, and the 5 pumps was not able to keep up. And we had a few times during 2005, 6, and 7 that we discovered this. So we made a recommendation to the drainage board back then to go ahead and see about adding an additional pump, the number 6 pump. And as part of our, what we termed back then, a major construction project of not only additional pumping station, pump at the pumping station, but also a Henderson Bayou pump station to do basically the same thing that we're doing at the Marvin Bro pump station. Except
more in the north of, is that also on the Amite?
Actually, no, it's on the Henderson Bayou, which for the...
But no, I mean in the Amite flood zone,
yes,
or floodplain?
It is.
But that takes care of more Man Shack flooding and Henderson Bayou flooding and all?
It's basically there as a floodgate to do the same thing as the Marvin Bro pumping station and levee are doing. but it's there to protect the Henderson Bayou or the Galvez area, the lower Galvez area, from backwater flooding from Amite River. And it's located almost, well, real close to Port Vincent, but for the old timers over there, they associate that area with Lake Velor. And so Henderson Bayou actually connects into Lake Velor into Amite River. And the pump station was designed and built just up from the connection of Henderson Bayou into Lake Velor. And again, it's designed to keep the water out from a major flood event from Amite River from coming into that basin. So that was all part of a major construction plan that we put together. And actually,
that took a lot of engineering, a lot of planning, maybe a little right-of-way acquisition.
It was a big effort.
It was a big effort.
The permitting
Expensive
was
effort.
enormous. We had a lot of problems with permitting. But we got through it, and in fact, I think we broke some records in forest construction, permitting construction, because in 5 years, we went from conception of the project to startup, actually in Henderson Bayou and in the Marvin Bro Pump Station, number 6 pump. So it's a major projects, and to pay for that, the Drainage Board decided to go out for some bonding money. And they bonded actually about $60 million, $56 million, the net amount of the bond. And out of that $56 million, we've been we did the Marvin Bro Pump Station addition, number 6 pump. But we kind of thought out of the box when we did number 6 pump. The major portion of when you add onto a pump station like this is the foundation, the housing itself, the concrete, and everything that goes along with it to put the pump on. So what we did was we actually built 2 bays, one for number 6 pump and a totally constructed separate bay for if we ever decide to go to number 7 pump. We had the bays there, the main construction.
So all you had to do was just install the
right,
pump and
the
you were
main
ready to
construction
go.
cost and time and permitting is done. It's ready to go with number 7 pump. So all of that was done several years ago. In addition to several other projects, the main project being, as part of that group of projects, paid for out of the bond money, at $56 million, is the extension of Laurel Ridge Levee.
Laurel Ridge is out in the eastern Sanamaw area.
It comes off of
Parish.
22. Our existing protection levee from the Marvin Bro Pump Station goes basically north of where the pump station is, south of Sorrento, and it meanders around and finally crosses over Highway 22 and connects into the old Laurel Ridge Levee. The old Laurel Ridge Levee continues from Highway 22, very close to the Divergent Canal, and ends at the end of the road of the Gold Place Road. Right. So if you go to the end of Gold Place Road and look ahead of you, you'll see the end of the old Laurel Ridge Levee, the original Laurel Ridge Levee. The new project that we're under engineering right now and permit, we're just about ready to get our permit for it, and we're hoping to get started. We're going.
And the permit comes from the Corps of Engineers.
Corps of Engineers. We're about ready to get the permit for it. We just need to do some land acquisition and the biomigration units to satisfy the permit. The new levee will go from that point of the end of the old Laurel Ridge Levee at the end of Gold Place Road. It will go almost directly north and end at the Spelman Wall Road, real close to
that's getting up close to Summerfield.
Summerfield and Port Vincent. And the reason for that is this area that is tied into is probably the highest point, or one of the highest points of the Lake Port Vincent area, that area close to Port Vincent. And to give you an example of how high it is, during the recent flood, the August flood, where this levee is tying into, did not flood. So it was safe. Even so close to Amite River, it's still safe.
It was high. Okay.
And so we feel real confident that we tied this levee into that. It'll give a lot more protection than we ever had in that area. We satisfied that it will provide the protection needed that's required to safeguard the people. But
how much area do you think would have been spared from flooding if that levee had been in place in August?
Well, and that is kind of a hard question, and it's because of one thing that's part of what we're going to do, part of our future project that we're working on right now. That levee by itself, and I'll give you an example, it's up to about a 15-foot elevation. If that levee and all of our levees would have been at about a 15, most of that area through there would not have been overtopped over the levee, and a lot of that area would not have flooded. And if it would have been minimal. I can't say the extension of the levee would have, if that was constructed as designed, it would have prevented or lessened the severity of the flooding, mainly because the old Law Ridge levee and the other existing levee that goes from 22 to the Morganville pump station, it's only at elevation 11.
Not 15.
That's it. And what would have happened, that levee still would have overtopped, and you still would have had a lot of the flooding that occurred would still have occurred. Now, I'm getting kind of ahead of myself a little bit because we want to get this levee constructed by our next project.
Well, wait, before we get to the next project, you're close to the permitting process right now. You're close to getting your permit.
Yes.
When do you think realistically construction can begin, and how long is it going to take to build that?
We're hoping to start the bidding for that project in the first part of next year. And it'll probably take about 1.5 years to construct, maybe 2. Depends on the weather. It's all predicated on the weather conditions. But hopefully in 3 years from now, it would be in use and providing protection we desire. However, if we don't do something with the existing levee, all the way from the location of Gold Plus Road all the way to the pump station, if we're not able to pick it up to the same elevation, you're not really getting the degree of protection you need or we desire. So what we're going to do, and we're working on, in fact, we had a meeting this morning on it about getting some federal funds, of raising all of that levee to that same 15 or core specifications for the core standard, for a levee. And that will enable us to do 2 things. Number one, provide the protection that we desire. The second thing is it get us in a better position to get a certified levee, a core certified levee all through there. Right now it's not core certified. If we can tie that in, if we can raise it and we can get it core certified, we got a better chance of having credit for having a levee. Right now we're not getting any credit for FEMA. We're not getting any credit. The homeowners are not getting any credit for having that protection with their insurance. Once we get this rest of the levee raised, and once we get into it being actually certified by the Corps, then FEMA come in and give the residents that live in the protected side, which is the biggest portion that flooded this past year. They'll give them credit, and the insurance should go down for flood insurance and stuff like this. So the third main leg or main portion of that bond money is going for the extension of Law Ridge levee, which hopefully we can get done over the next 3 years. And again, that is pretty much being spent out of the bond money, of which our debt service is about $4 million a year. And
because a bond is essentially a loan.
It's a loan.
And you're using that the tax money that comes in every year to pay back the loan.
Exactly.
So $4 million, or the ad valorem tax money, is essentially going to pay off that debt. And then you've got that money to use for these major projects.
That's correct.
What are you doing with the rest of that money?
Well, one thing is we decided, because of a lot of reasons, mainly some of the modeling and some of the analysis that we did on future growth of Ascension Parish, we decided to go for and add number 7 pump at the pumping station. And we looked at it from a lot of different ways, and we decided to say, well, look, Ascension Parish is growing, it can continue to grow. And the next 10 years or 15, 20 years, we know we're going to need that number 7 pump. It's never going to get any cheaper than right now. And we have the money to do it, so let's go ahead and do it. So we are. And in fact, it's being installed right now. We have about another month from now, and it'll be online. So at that, again, in roughly a month, we should have 7 pumps running. at the Morganville pump station to better provide protection on this side.
So what you're telling me is when you're doing your planning, when you're looking at all of your drainage projects, you're not only looking at what we have now and what has happened in the past, you're trying to estimate future growth, future development so that the drainage program can handle that is not even here yet.
Exactly. And one thing you got to think of, we are while we're doing all of this work, we're constantly trying to enlarge the capacity of all our channels within the protected side, or all over the parish. The problem is you get, if you don't watch it, you can do real good work by opening up these channels, but hurt you on the bottom end by getting the water over there too fast if you don't have the capacity to get it out.
To get it out.
So, and that's one of the things we found that we were doing. We would open up all our channels up north, all going all the way up to, St. John and Perryville and everything else, and which was doing a real good job of getting the water out. But that's when we started finding out, well, might be doing too good of a job in some ways. The water's getting too much water getting down there too fast, and that's why we went number 6, and now we're going with number 7 because we don't see a change in Ascension Parish forest growth. If anything, it's going to keep increasing. And it's no better time than now for us saving on money and the cost of providing this other pump. Let's go ahead and do it. And again, we're about ready to finish that. And that's all out of that funding source from the bond. Now, in addition to that, and one of the reasons that we, again, we're going back to the whole idea of the bond money. That money came to us as a loan, but it just set in the bank for us to use for those projects. And basically that has been our major project over the last 5, 6, 7 years, spending that money for these projects. During that time, we try to save as much money as we can on our budget, the operational budget. So we always, more or less a budget neutral situation every year where money we don't spend savings money or money we got built up in our fund balance. We never go over the amount of, or hardly ever, go over the amount of money that actually comes in. What we predict we will receive, that's what we budget for our operations. Since we're spending most of our money for major projects from that bond money, we have been able to build up our fund balance from the taxes coming in to a neighborhood of about $34 million, maybe $36 million. So right now, in addition to our bond money, which is almost depleted because we're finishing up the major projects, we have in the neighborhood of $34 to $38 million in our savings account, which is our fund balance, just sitting there. But the idea, what everybody got to understand, again, since we depleted, we really haven't depleted completely, but basically we're bonded out. We're not really capable of,
we can't borrow any more money.
And borrow more money.
We're tapped. We can't borrow any more
That's
money.
right.
So we have to make do now with what the money that is coming
fund
in.
Balance
So
and what money we can save. So over the next, and we do have projects that we're either doing analysis on right now or doing actually some engineering on right now. Future projects
for
that
instance,
will be
what are we looking at
funded
right
out
now?
of that.
What are some of the projects that people can expect to see in the next few years, or at least on the drawing board for the
Well,
few years?
number one is, of course, is the raising of the levees, getting it up to the elevation of 15 so we get total protection and a much greater protection even if we get a flood of the event of August. But in addition to that, right now we're working on a new floodgate and locks at Bluff Swamp. We call it the Fish Bayou, Frog Bayou area of Bluff Swamp off of Alligator Bayou Road. And we're going in with a large set of locks there. And the reason for that is we found in the August event, the water overtopped Alligator Bayou Road, went into the Bluff Swamp and flooded everybody in the Bluff Swamp all the way up to the prison in St. Gabriel.
So you had to cut notches in the road.
We cut, one opening was roughly 80 feet by, well, it started out at 2 or 3 feet, but ended up about 8, 10 feet deep. And then we eventually cut another opening just down the road from it of about 40 feet at about the same depth. And to release the water out of Bluff Swamp. Because once it fills up, it's captured. It can't get
got,
out.
got nowhere to go.
And basically, we had some box culverts that provided the drainage out of that system at two locations. One at Alligator Bayou, which is controlled by Iberville Parish, and the other one just 1,000 feet north of that in our parish, which we call the Frog Bayou Lock. And basically, just a 6x6 box covers with a gate on it to control it. What we did, but we found in this event here, it was, I guess it's the same as saying you had an Olympic-sized pool with a straw and trying to drain that Olympic-sized pool through that straw. That's the situation we ran into with the flood of August. And that
okay,
was,
so
that,
we're addressing that, the Spanish Lake area and all of that. What else are we looking at? What else can the people
in addition to that, we are, in fact, we're going for engineering right now to do a complete dredging of the large portion of Panama Canal.
Panama Canal runs southern part of East Ascension Parish.
Yes,
yeah?
and it goes basically from Darrow, somewhat in that area, Astroland, Darrow area, down through Pelican Point, all the way down to Sorrento, and then basically it crosses LA 70 where the BFI dump site is, and then eventually goes down and ties in and goes into St. James Parish and goes into Blind River. That's a gravity drainage system there. So in other words, it's not part of the Marvinboro pump station.
It's not part of the pumping system.
So it's totally dependent on gravity drainage. And that gravity drainage is dependent on how big the channel is and the obstruction.
So you're going to be dredging and cleaning that out, and
we're going to be enlarging that and dredging it to get it more capacity going through there. In addition to that, we're looking at possibly, and again, going back, the main things that we're looking at is the raising of the levee, some additional locks or upgrade locks at Bluff Swamp. We're looking at the dredging of this channel, the
Panama Canal.
The Panama Canal. The other thing that we're looking at, and it came about as a result of the flood. Once everything overtopped Ascension Parish, we found that again we got into the situation not too unsimilar from the Bluff Swamp situation and Katrina, New Orleans Katrina. When water overtops, it builds up and it's captured by the levee. So the levee won't let it out, and it just builds up and gets a higher elevation and floods more people. What we're looking at also is doing a relief floodway system through the levee just north of the pumping station, a major relief system, and you can liken it to the Bonacary Spillway or the Morganza Spillway, but to a much smaller degree, but that kind of situation where if you ever have to, and not only in a flood situation, but also normal rain events, where you get enough water where our pumping system cannot take it out fast enough, you can always open this up and release it. And we're looking at that project and hopefully can get some FEMA mitigation money because of the flood to help pay for that too. And in addition, of course, we hope not only to get funding for that. We talked this morning, and there's a good chance that we can get funding through FEMA and through GOSEP to provide funds, mitigation funds, based on what happened in August, to help out with the Panama Canal dredging, to help out with this floodway, and also the other major thing that we're looking at, and hopefully get funding for, is a enlargement of structures, crossings, and also the dredging of Bayou Manchac, because that's been a major issue for many years. And that's a project that not only
water
helped
stayed
us,
in Bayou Manchac for a long time,
yes,
didn't it? Yeah.
And it not only benefit us, but it'll benefit East Baton Rouge and Iberville
And
Parish.
Iberville as well. Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at a joint project with cooperation of all three parishes to be able to get federal funds to go through there and do a dredging of that channel. But also the main part of that project is increase the crossings, which there are significant high-cost crossings, which is the interstate crossing the Bayou Manchac, the Old Perkins Road crossing Bayou Manchac, and also Airline Highway.
Airline Highway.
And which is high-cost projects to enlarge those crossings. But that's one of the major things we have to do to release the water through it. and get better drainage through there. So that's another major project.
So these are huge projects, that are very costly, very expensive, that the average person is not really going to see being done. So many
right.
people are saying, well, the ditch in front of my house is flooding, or that culvert is blocked up,
That's
or
right.
I got this ditch, but what kind of programs do you have in place for that? These are the things that the people see in
Right.
their homes, and that'll get the water out of their yards.
Well, of course, all of that kind of work comes under operations, our operations budget, normal operation. That's what the personnel at DPW does on a daily basis. One of the main things that people has to understand is that in South Louisiana, in South Ascension Parish, especially South Ascension Parish, and somewhat all over Ascension Parish, is that there really is no slope to provide adequate drainage. In other words, if you dig a ditch and it's 1,000 feet long, you may have at best 6 inches of slope. So in other words, a drop from the starting to the end of 1,000 feet, you may have only 6 inches.
Because we're so flat.
It's so flat. And what happens is water just sits. And so you really don't have the adequate slope to get the water out. And you don't have the ability to go in there and dig it deeper. Because the only thing that happens then, you pond it. You make it worse. So for the most part, all we're able to do is go in there and clean it out. The best way of doing that work is actually enlarge the top. Open it up the top, making it wider. That's a major problem too, because we can't get right of way. And for a lot of reasons, some of it is the people at Ascension Parish really don't want to give us the right of way. Say, no, you got enough, this is mine, you're not getting any more. The other thing is there are already houses and roads and fences and everything else in the way.
If you widen some of these ditches, you're gonna take
right.
people's front yards away.
Exactly.
You're gonna take their houses
So
away.
you can't increase the top. And basically because you can't increase the bottom because of the slope and everything, the only thing left is increase the top, and you can't increase the top because you don't have a right of way.
So you have to do these major projects.
You got to do major
have to do
projects,
the pumping stations and
you-
floodgates and stuff.
The people have to understand that, we can go in there and we do a little bit of cleaning here and there, but unless we get more right of way, we can't do a lot of major improvements to improve the drainage. We're limited, with what called constrained, by that fact.
But I do know, because I've received a lot of calls over the last months, and your crew, your everyday maintenance crew, they're pretty quick. When they get a call, there's a problem, a culvert is blocked or a ditch is blocked or there's an issue with something, they're pretty good about going out and taking care of it.
Yes.
They're pretty responsive, I think.
They are to a point, and I'll be honest with you, the problem is, and it has to do with mainly last year because we got way behind because of the floods. And give everybody an understanding, when you have a major rain event or you have, like we did, a hurricane or a flood, all our work orders stops. Our normal daily work orders are stopped until we get through the emergency situation, and then we're able to start up again. But in addition to that, because of the storm, the number of weekly or daily work orders come in has tripled. So not only are you not able to get the old work orders out,
You still got your backlog of those, and then the new ones are piling up
triple
more
the
and
number
more.
of work orders came in just from that one event. So it's just getting further and further and further behind. Last year was horrible. It would turn out to be the wettest year on record throughout the central, Louisiana. For us, it just stopped all work. We didn't do anything but flood-related work, both in the March event, which is a major rain event, and then in a catastrophic August event, which we did not finish up on flood-related work until January. And we still, to this day, doing some, picking up debris and stuff like this, and going back into some of the old channels and removing debris that was caused by that. So we still trying to take care of some of the emergency work from the flood itself, while at the same time trying to go back and start back up on our old work orders. To give you an example right now, we're about 2 years behind on work orders. Based on the amount of time and our resources to do these work orders, it's pushing everything back so far that we're actually 2 years behind. So theoretically, if you call in today with a routine, common work order, if we would schedule that work order according to our schedule, and with number of days per work order, and based on who called in first, being fair to everybody, it might be 2 years from today before we can get to your work order.
Wow.
For that reason, the council and President Matassa ordered me and to man up. Let's get some more resources in, which means more manpower, more equipment, to try to catch up. And
I can tell you, because I work with him every day. President Matassa is very concerned and compassionate about the flooding situation. He's still agonizing over the people being out of their homes and the flooding, and he's doing everything he can. So I know he authorized you to go forward, and I was glad to see the Drainage Board the other day echoing that same sentiment.
They are, and we're trying to, and of course a lot of people say, well, if you do it better, you get a better way of doing it, or a better system. Productivity is better, that you can you can catch up without having people, but that's not the case. We're too far behind. The fact of the matter is we've been undermanned for a few years now, and last year.
So you've been authorized
Right.
to lay on the personnel that you feel you need and acquire the equipment that you feel that you need to
Right.
take care of all of these work orders. And when can we see some activity there, Bill?
Well, and that's where some of the problem comes in. I mean, we hoping to have people on board, professional operators and equipment operators in place, and what we call CDL drivers, dump truck drivers, stuff like this in place in the next 90 days. The problem is finding the people that's willing to come to work for the parish with the conditions, more than anything else, the salary that we're able to pay. Come from major industry to us, and accept the benefits that we have. Hopefully we can get the right people in, but that would be our major challenge right now, to get those type of people in, people we don't have to train, to come in, get on a piece of equipment and start work. What we're doing in conjunction with this, which is a long-term benefit, we need these people no matter if we don't catch up or we catch up, we're still going to need these people to sustain a reasonable amount of time to react to a work order. We're looking at possibly hiring contractors to come in to assist us in just catching up. If we do that, we can utilize outside contractors on a term basis. When we get to the point where our own people can handle it and stay no more than maybe 60 days or 90 days, time period for reacting to a normal, non-emergency work order, well, then we can release the contractors and then just continue to operate with our normal personnel.
But this is something that you all are focusing on right now.
We're doing it now.
It's going on.
Yes.
So I guess to recap, to tell the people what's been going on, what we've been doing for training. You've got your major seriously major projects. The pumping station of Marvin Bro. You're doing the floodgates in Alligator Bayou. You're doing the Laurel Ridge levee extension plus the improvement on the existing Laurel Ridge. You're doing Panama Canal cleaning out, and then we're also now going to focus on your everyday maintenance crew to take care of work order problems, the off-road ditches, the drainage, the localized drainage.
Right.
So
now
that's a pretty full plate.
I got to comment on one thing. Now, when we talk about projects, there's two types of projects that we do. Number one is your major capital improvement projects, which is again what we spent a lot of the bond money on, but we spend our fund balance on that kind of stuff, which is your major heavy cost projects. But we have a crew within Public Works. We call it a major channel crew. And those are the people that goes in with our major heavy equipment, which is your long reach excavators and your heavy dozers and your heavy pieces of equipment. And we utilize that group to do major channel work. So you'll see us, in fact, right now we're working on Muddy Creek. And if you
Muddy Creek in the northeast part of the parish.
If you actually go down Highway 42, you're going up Highway 42, Muddy Creek crosses Highway 42 right around Highway 930, but Highway 930 comes in. But you'll see us working there, and we're enlarging that channel. We're going through, we have a routine maintenance of improving our major channels with our own major improvement group, construction group, which is this one group of employees. And we have a schedule to do one channel after the other over the next 10 years. Okay, because it takes about a 10-year rotation to get this improvement of your major channels, basically digging out your major channels. We did it about 10 years ago, and 12 years ago now, and we in the process of going through it all again. So right now we're doing Muddy Creek, then we'll be moving over and coming up Black Bayou, the Bayou Goudin, going through Gonzales and New River. We're getting ready to do a major project, I hope, going through Gonzales itself, improving New River, and going up all the way up New River, which goes almost to the Mississippi River.
Almost to the river in Geisler.
That's right. And then Bayou Francois, all of these major channels is going to be improved, just like we improving Panama Canal. We're going to be improving all of these channels, not mainly enlarging them anymore, but just cleaning them out and making them more efficient. So we're going to be doing that continuously for the next 10 years. And then after 10 years, again, it's an estimate, we start all over again. Because by that time, the first channel that we worked on
has silted in again,
ready to start all over. So this is a continuous process that we're going to be going through. So hopefully, all the work will show a benefit to the
Well, Bill,
parish.
that's a lot of planning, man.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you do indeed know every ditch and bayou in this parish.
It's a major organizational effort that we have to do at DPW, and people don't understand that DPW is a major corporation.
Yeah.
If you think about it, if you talk about the roadside ditches.
How many people you got working in DPW?
Right now, we about 140,
so that's
give
half,
or take.
That's over half of the workforce of the whole parish.
But the biggest thing is our budget. Now, my budget for this year is in the $32 to $33 million. Now, just for operational expense. And that's your roadside ditches, your top of your road improvements, which is your what we call rideability, keeping it smooth and fixing
that's
potholes and
DPW
stuff.
as a whole. Yeah.
And all your other drainage and stuff like this. So it's in the $30 to $31 million, and that's expenditures. So you can liken that to a $50 or $100 million corporation.
Okay, well, we're going to come back one day and talk about some of the other things that are going on in DPW. But for now, that's in a real big nutshell, that's what's going on in drainage in Ascension Parish. So we really want to thank Bill Rue, our Department of Public Works Director, for being here. Thank you for watching another one of our departmental updates. As always, these are uploaded onto the Ascension Parish YouTube channel, so they're available for you to watch over and over again at your convenience. We encourage you to watch again, and thanks so much, Bill, for giving us that update.
Appreciate it.